Lewis Hamilton asked just one question in Ferrari's Hungarian Grand Prix briefing room. 7 words that would expose a betrayal 2 decades in the making. Do you want 2 cars or just one? It wasn't shouted. It wasn't delivered with anger. But in the silence that followed, every engineer in that room understood exactly what had happened. This wasn't about setup preferences or racing strategy. This was about whether Ferrari had just sacrificed their 7-time world champion to validate a political agenda. And the data that emerged in the days after Hungary tells a story more shocking than anything we've seen in modern Formula One. Here's what actually happened between Friday night and Saturday morning at the Hungaroring. Hamilton's SF25 had been transformed, not by accident, not by weather, but by deliberate sabotage disguised as engineering. According to Riccardo Adami, Hamilton's own race engineer, the rear ride height that Hamilton had dialed in millimeter by millimeter was raised overnight. The differential preload he'd requested for smooth torque delivery was changed to make the car snap unpredictably under braking. Every stability setting he'd fought to create was systematically undone. But here's the damning part. Charles Leclerc's car remained completely untouched. His rotation-focused setup stayed exactly as requested, giving him the planted, predictable platform Hamilton was now denied. This wasn't a technical glitch. According to Ferrari's own internal records, these changes bypassed Hamilton's trackside crew entirely. They came from Ferrari's main performance group, a level of authority that reports directly to the technical and sporting directors. Think about what that means. While Hamilton slept, believing his car was ready for qualifying, Ferrari's hierarchy was actively working against him. But wait until you see what this decision actually cost Hamilton in points and why it might have handed the championship to someone else entirely. Now, you might think this was just a setup disagreement between 2 drivers with different styles. Hamilton wanted stability, Leclerc wanted rotation. Seems reasonable that Ferrari would test both approaches, right? That's exactly what Ferrari wants you to believe. On the surface, it looks like a normal engineering decision. 2 different philosophies being tested under race conditions to determine the development direction for next season. But the data reveals something far more sinister. Hamilton's brake pressure traces on Friday were smooth and consistent, the mark of a driver fully confident in his machinery. By Saturday morning, those same traces were jagged and uneven, showing a driver forced to make constant corrections just to survive each corner entry. The tire temperature data is even more revealing. With his setup compromised, Hamilton's rear tires were sliding more under load, generating heat faster and unevenly. In the Hungarian summer, that's a death sentence for race pace. Meanwhile, Leclerc's data remained pristine. Perfect brake traces, optimal tire temperatures, a car that responded exactly as intended. This becomes clear when you realize what Ferrari's main performance group actually controls. They don't just influence weekend setups, they feed directly into Ferrari's development pathway for the following season. Every decision they make shapes next year's car design. And here's where the story gets really dark, because what happened next proves this wasn't about engineering at all. The timing reveals the true intent. Between Friday night's final practice session and Saturday morning's FP3, Ferrari had a choice. They could have communicated the changes to Hamilton and his engineer. They could have made equivalent adjustments to Leclerc's car for comparison. They could have tested both setups fairly. Instead, they chose deception. The changes were executed in secret. Hamilton wasn't informed. Adami wasn't consulted. The modifications were signed off by the performance group while both driver and engineer were completely unaware. Why would Ferrari sabotage their own 7-time world champion? The answer lies in the political war brewing inside Maranello. According to sources within the team, 2025 had already become a season of competing visions. Engineers, aerodynamicists, and strategists were quietly aligning themselves with either Hamilton's stability-focused approach or Leclerc's rotation-heavy philosophy. Hungary was supposed to be the neutral testing ground where both concepts would be evaluated fairly. But with Leclerc closer to the championship lead, whispers emerged that the priority was no longer equal opportunity. It was consolidating behind one approach. By secretly compromising Hamilton's stability while keeping Leclerc's rotation setup intact, Ferrari could point to the weekend results as proof that Leclerc's direction was faster. It was data manipulation disguised as engineering analysis. When Hamilton asked, "Do you want two cars or just one?" he wasn't just questioning a setup choice. He was calling out a rigged game. The championship mathematics of what happened next will shock you and explain why Hamilton might already be considering his exit. In modern Formula One, 25 points isn't just one race win. It's a psychological barrier that changes how both drivers approach every remaining weekend. Even if Hamilton beats Leclerc outright in the next Grand Prix, that margin stays dangerous unless something dramatic happens. But the damage goes beyond points. Ferrari's rivals have noticed the fracture. McLaren's Andrea Stella quietly noted the gap in Hamilton's sector 2 stability compared to his Friday-long runs, a gap that couldn't be explained by weather or tire choice. Red Bulls didn't need data to see the story. Hamilton's defensive lines in the race, the earlier braking points, the lack of mid-corner bite were clear signs that something inside Ferrari wasn't working in harmony. This is exactly what rival strategists dream of. A divided Ferrari is easier to pressure in pit stop windows, easier to split with alternate strategies, and more likely to make reactive calls under pressure. Mercedes, now fighting Ferrari for constructors' points, will target Hamilton specifically, knowing he may not get the same strategic support or defensive cover as Leclerc. But the most terrifying part isn't what happened in Hungary. It's what this means for every remaining race. The real danger for Ferrari isn't that Hungary was a one-off. It's that it could become the blueprint for how internal battles are settled for the rest of 2025. If the main performance group feels emboldened to make unilateral changes without consulting a driver's trackside team, then every circuit from Monza to Abu Dhabi becomes a political chessboard. Monza, with its flat-out braking zones and high-speed stability demands, should be Hamilton territory if his preferred setup is honored. But after Hungary, there's no guarantee it will be. For Hamilton, this creates a mental tax no driver wants to pay. Instead of fine-tuning braking markers or experimenting with tire warm-up procedures, he now has to plan for the possibility that the car he approves on Friday evening won't be the same one he gets on Saturday morning. The 2026 implications are even more terrifying. The next generation Ferrari will need a unified design approach baked in from day one. If Leclerc's style dominates the input process, Hamilton risks starting an entire regulation cycle at a disadvantage, spending the final years of his career in a car inherently biased against his strengths. That's a nightmare scenario for a driver who joined Ferrari precisely to have a package built around him. The next few races will reveal Ferrari's true intentions. Will they restore genuine parity between their drivers and make it obvious to the entire garage? Or will they continue down a path that could turn one of the most high-profile driver signings in their history into a cautionary tale? What do you think? Was this sabotage or just poor communication? And more importantly, can Ferrari repair the trust they've broken with their 7-time world champion? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more insider F1 analysis you won't find anywhere else.